Hello and welcome to the Emmy Awards. I'm your host, Emmy Cardinale, and this is my podcast where I talk about what I've been watching or rewatching once a week. If this is the first episode of mine that you stumble upon and you enjoy it, please feel free to follow me wherever you listen to podcasts so you can get notified when I upload a new episode. Like and subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube. This episode, as the title suggests, I'm going to be continuing my coverage of I Love LA, and I will also be talking about The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives Season 3. So for I Love LA, I'm currently recapping the show, so that's kind of like I go scene by scene and talk about, what happens and then share my thoughts as that progresses. For The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, because of the nature of the show, I will not be doing like an in-depth recap in that capacity. I'm just kind of going to talk about my thoughts on the season, storyline by storyline, if that makes sense. I will be doing that at the end. I do anticipate that being longer than the I Love LA segment, just because that's 10 episodes that I want to talk about, and I Love LA is just 30 minutes for one episode. So that out of the way, timestamps will be in the description, so if you don't care about I Love LA, you can skip to the Mormon Wives section. I love the show, genuinely love the show, and I'm very excited to talk about all of it. My cat Ernesto is not yelling, sorry, that's mean, but he's meowing and I don't know what's wrong, and come upstairs. Speak. Anyways, sorry. I have quite a lot to say. I feel like I've had thoughts about a lot of the show. Obviously, I've talked about The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives on this podcast, but I feel like this season genuinely had so much that I have so many things to say about. Not that the other seasons haven't. I feel like maybe it's because we're 3 seasons in and I feel a lot more invested in the women's lives than I did before. I genuinely, watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, I knew about them from social media, but I wasn't particularly, a fan of any of them. And so I went into the show very much being I don't particularly care about any of these women, and I don't particularly have the best view of Mormons. Sorry, I hate to Mormons as individuals, but I think it's a weird religion. However, through the 3 seasons, now I genuinely have parasocial opinions about them. So this season I feel like was the first one where I felt genuinely very emotionally invested, more so than just I'm invested in the plot line. I feel defensive or confused or disappointed. Anyways, I'll get into it. I want to talk about I Love LA first. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means a lot. I hope you enjoy my thoughts on both I Love LA and The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So I Love LA, where we last left off, Paulina, who one of the main characters, Tallulah, had stolen a bag from, she overheard them plotting and she was recording an expose. That's how episode 2 ended. Episode 3 is called Girls Girl, which war flashbacks. Anybody else, I hate the term Girls Girl. If you were in the Big Brother 25 fandom, maybe you get that, maybe you don't. Back to what I was saying. Okay, the episode is called Girls Girl. It opens with Tallulah and Alani in Alani's place getting IVs, and Tallulah goes on Instagram. She sees that she got a DM from a cute chef, whose name I literally don't know. I watched the episode twice, and I did not gather the cute chef's name, so I'm so sorry to that chef. But if she shows up in future episodes, I will get her name this time. The first time I watched the show, I didn't know Dylan's name. And when I rewatched the show, the first 2 episodes to take notes for the podcast, that's when I got his name. I genuinely didn't know his name was Dylan. In my mind, that's PETA. No, I'm kidding. I've never even watched The Hunger Games. I should do that. Anyways, sorry. I've also never read The Hunger Games. I should also do that. Anyways, I'm currently in the process of rereading the Percy Jackson series. And it's actually been so lovely because I started doing this earlier this year, and now with the Percy Jackson series coming out, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Sorry for all the tangents. Anyways, so Tallulah goes on Instagram. She sees that she got a DM from this cute chef, and Alani's oh, she's the head chef at Chinny's. It's a really hard spot to get into for civilians. And Tallulah's she invited me to go tonight. I love the use of civilians in those contexts because that's exactly how I talk about people who aren't influencers or aren't reality TV people. I'm regular civilians versus influencers. So I like the use of civilian in this context. Tallulah's phone then starts blowing up and she gets a link to Paulina's video. Tallulah gets up in a hurry, and because she's getting an IV, like blood goes everywhere. I hated this opening because it stressed me out, and I'm not even particularly afraid of needles, and obviously it's fake, like I know, but it upset me. Anyways, she doesn't have any band-aids. Alani doesn't. The only thing she has are nipple covers, which is funny. Like, that's funny, but I hated the needle thing, whatever. Okay. And then it goes to the title card, I Love LA. Maya's on the phone with her parents. She's like walking on a treadmill in her room, and she's explaining a Tresemme deal that she got for Tallulah. Her dad's really impressed. Her mom says hi, and then she gets a text from Tallulah and hangs up with her parents because she gets a link to the TikTok, and she hangs up on her parents and watches it. She checks the comments. The comments are all shitting on Tallulah. Maya begins to panic. I was really excited about this as a storyline, and I think it was very interesting. And I think a lot about, I'm obviously, or maybe not obviously, maybe you have no idea who I am. Yes, I have a podcast, but I'm not in any capacity an influencer. I don't even make money from this podcast. But I am very fascinated with the whole influencer sphere. Like, I am genuinely somebody who, like, consumes influencer commentary content, drama, if you want to call it that. More so like commentary YouTubers, like drama, commentary, whatever. I do find that interesting. Like, I am very fascinated with the influencer sphere, just as I'm interested in the sphere of, like, celebrity. It's part of the reason, not to jump to the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, but it's very, very present on my mind. It's one of the reasons I was so fascinated by the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives when it first came out, and I still really like it, because I feel like reality TV in the early days was like it was before influencing was really a thing in the same capacity. And now it feels like people go on reality TV to be influencers. And not that I don't personally think there's anything against that, but I just thought there was something so fascinating about a show following these women who were already influencers. And obviously it added, like, it was just super interesting. And I love the way they explored the idea of influencing on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. But anyways, so I really like this as a storyline. Is it super accurate? I don't know. I have no experience in this beyond what I've seen as I don't know about the behind the scenes of influencer apologies and like what goes into that and how accurate all of this is. The only thing I know is from what people tell you. Maya calls Charlie and he says, and she's like, did you see, like, are people texting you? And he's like, what happened? Hello, how are you? And she's like, hi, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, everybody's talking about it. Even like old group chats are revived. And while he's on the phone with her, he's like parking his car and he gets out. Maya's freaking out, wondering if the Tresemme deal will fall through because of all of this. Maya says Alyssa, her boss, will freak out if Tallulah gets a reputation of being brand unsafe. She's fucked. She's like really freaking out. And Charlie says reputations ended in 2017. Oh my god, Taylor Swift's Impact. Like, literally, that came out in 2017. Is that what it's referring to, or am I just too Swifty-brained? I was like, so true. There will be no explanation, there will just be reputation. Anyways, and he's like, look at me. Mimi Rush fired me and no one even cares. He's like, okay, I gotta go, I'm gonna go get my matcha. So he's like, there's a huge line out the door of this coffee shop. He cuts the line, goes to the front, and the barista is like, no more cutting the line. He's wearing a Mimi Rush t-shirt, so basically he's rejected from cutting the line now because of the whole Mimi Rush thing. Maya then arrives at Alani's house. Tallulah's freaking out. Maya like gives her a backup vape, gives her the vape to like calm her down, which like, I don't like vaping. Not that anybody wanted my stance on vaping. Hate the vape, not the vapor. That's not funny. I lost my train of thought. I lost my place in my notes and my train of thought because I was like, I don't want to be offended. I don't want to insult people who vape. I just really don't like vaping. I hate the concept of vapes. I hate what vapes did to society. I hate that like vaping has given so many people nicotine addictions. You know what I mean? Anyways, but that's the reality. So I'm not like shitting on them for including it. I just hate vapes. Anyways, Tallulah says she feels horrible. Everybody hates her and she's having a panic attack. And Alani is like, I tried to give her an edible, but she wouldn't take it. So I took it and now I'm high. Alani's my favorite character. 3 episodes in, I'm claiming her. She's my favorite character. I'm obsessed with her. Maya's like, we should take a breath. Everything's going to be fine. And Tallulah's like, everything is not going to be fine. People are saying I have shark eyes. Maya's like, You don't have shark eyes. You have deer eyes, beautiful eyes, sexy eyes. She tells her not to read the comments. People will take this as an excuse to call her ugly. And Tallulah says they're not calling her ugly. They're calling her a terrible person. And I do generally agree. People on the internet, very mean. They're very mean. They're very mean. That's one thing I can never get behind. I delete comments on my TikTok, and I'm not even like embarrassed because I'm like, I just don't want that kind of. Sometimes I don't delete comments. I'm not perfect, but like I made a TikTok about Jen Affleck, and somebody in the comments like said something mean about her, and like I deleted it because I was like, I don't really care about your negative opinion about Jen Affleck. This wasn't a negative video about her, okay? There's no need for you to come on my page and tell me you hate her. I don't care. And you know what? Jen Affleck liked that TikTok. So I'm glad I deleted that comment. She was answering it. Not that she did, but it was so random too. The TikTok doesn't even have like 100 likes. Like she was genuinely just searching up hashtag Jen Affleck. And you know what? Shout out to her. Anyways, sorry. Take a shot every single time I mention the Mormon wives before I even get to that section of the podcast. I love the show. What can I say? But anyways, Maya says they're all beautiful and they're all good. And then Charlie comes in and says everybody wants him dead. Mimi Rush has turned the service industry against him. He's banned from Kenyan coffee. And they're like, oh no, you can't get coffee? And he's like, no, cutting specifically, but this impacts all of us. Why aren't you guys more mad? He's funny. He's a funny character. I'll give him that. I feel like right now, and I feel so bad saying it, but Tallulah is my least favorite character. She's growing on me. I don't dislike her as much as I did from episodes 1 and 2, but there's still just something about Tallulah that I'm just like not really... She grew on me a little bit this episode, I will say. And I don't hate her. I'm just like... And if you like Tallulah the best, then that's like, with peace and love, people are allowed to have different, anyways. I'm not shitting on her as a person, okay? I watch Yellow Jackets, and I think cannibalism is bad, and I love the characters, and, And Charlie says, what am I supposed to do? Wait in line like I'm an assistant at UTA? I believe that's a talent agency. I don't really know. One of the reasons I love the show is because I live in LA, but I don't live in like the influencer-y sphere of LA because I'm not an influencer. Like I clock into work and I design newspapers. Like this isn't my life. So it's fun because I'm like, I live here, but like I don't know anything about this. But in that capacity, I do also just want to make it clear that I don't know anything about this. So I'm not trying to shit on UTA, okay? That's not my genre. Okay. Tallulah is like spiraling. She wants to defend herself. She's trying to respond in the comments, and Maya tells her not to engage, not respond to the comments. Take a minute before you engage. Alani, meanwhile, is talking to Charlie and asks why Mimi Rush controls the service industry. And he says she's a gay icon and all service workers are gay, at least the ones that matter. Period. And he says they all have the same Adderall dealer and they all talk. Tallulah's like watching Paulina's video on her phone, and Alani's like, can you play that back? That sounds really familiar. Like, I feel like I know her. Maya's like, no, we're not rewatching the video. Like, don't encourage her to like spiral in this. She doesn't say that, but like that's the vibe, Tallulah is like, this is slander. Isn't your dad a lawyer to Maya? Maya's like, he works in insurance. Tallulah's like, did you see what she said in part 3? She's like very, very paranoid, like very, very spiraling obsessive over it. Maya takes her phone, and then Alani dunks it in water. And Tallulah's like, I need my phone. And Maya's like, just give me 24 hours. Alyssa has people that can handle this. Like, we will solve this for you. I'm your manager. We'll solve it. Tallulah's like, okay, but what am I supposed to do without my phone? And Maya's like, take a Klonopin and sleep until tomorrow. Alani's like, she can't sleep until tomorrow. She has a date. Tallulah's like, I can't go to that. And Alani's like, you can't let the scandal ruin your plans. Like my dad used to say, we're not letting an indictment ruin another Christmas. Like, I find her so funny. She's so funny to me. I love her. And the way the actress plays her, too, and the comedy, I just genuinely... If the whole show was just Alani, I think I would be having a great time. I love her. Maya's like, exactly, Tallulah, go on the date. Everything will be fine. She's got it handled. She's Tallulah's manager. She leaves, and she kind of, like, pukes a little bit outside. Maya is at a meeting with Alyssa and a PR person named Victor, and Alyssa says he's a PR magician, and Maya kind of wants to lean into, like, she's trying to defend Tallulah because his PR person's like, the good thing is they're both unreliable. Neither of them are really believable. Like, we're good. This isn't a big deal. We can handle it, yada, 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 yada. And Maya's really trying to defend Tallulah by being like, Tallulah's not crazy. Like, we should lean into like the messy version of her, et cetera, like trying to be like, this is what Tallulah's brand is like, while they're very much trying to be like, this is what we should do on paper, which was interesting for me personally. I don't know how accurate this is to real life PR crisis management situations. The PR person says it's a good thing they're both white because it's easier to deal with. And then Alyssa's like, yeah, it'll be a much shorter apology too. Which, like, first of all, okay, they're both white. Ugh, gross. And Maya's like an apology, and then he has copy for her. It's like very standard, like, I'm sorry for everything I did, yada, yada, yada. And Alyssa's like, maybe Tallulah can say that she'll go to rehab for her drug problem. And Maya's like, isn't that kind of admitting that she does have this drug problem? And he's like, leaning into that is good, you know, like, I was addicted to drugs, then I wasn't, then I was again. Addiction's a disease. And Maya's like worried that this is out of character for Tallulah. Again, she's very much focused on the like, this isn't what Tallulah would authentically say in response to these allegations, and she's worried that Tallulah's followers will like read this as dishonest. And their focus, specifically the crisis PR person's focus, is the Tresemme ad. Alyssa says she understands that Maya wants to protect her friend, but she needs to see her as a client first, and this Victor strategy is what's best for the client. I thought this was really, really fascinating, of like business and what's good for like a company and a brand versus like a human reaction, a human approach. And I think that's a very interesting aspect to influencing, because there's specifically an aspect to influencers where it's like part of their appeal is that they are not like these out of touch celebrities, right? They're just like average people. So there's like an extra layer that is interesting to me about like scripted PR responses of like, and I'm not saying that all PR is like this. I don't know anything about PR, to be clear, but I just think it's interesting of like the two kind of approaches clashing, with Maya being like, this isn't authentic to her, and Alyssa's like, this is what's good on paper to just say. And here's the thing, and I'm not a PR expert, but this is just how I feel as a viewer of things and a person who consumes this kind of thing. I personally think, and they are later like, it's not racism, it's not homophobia, it's just not being a girl's girl, which is where the title of the episode comes from. For me, and again, this is just my personal view on this, I'm not an expert, but as somebody who consumes a lot of influencer stuff, both their controversies and just like, I genuinely do enjoy content creators and consuming that kind of, like, I love a podcast. I love TikTokers. I find that very interesting. Love YouTube. Have been watching YouTubers for like a decade. Anyways, for me, there's like layers to things. If somebody's like racist or says something offensive in any capacity that's like bigoted, I would like a thought out like apology, even if it's a PR kind of thing. It doesn't need to be a like, but for me, the reason this feels different is like, I don't know, when it's like an interpersonal issue where it's like, she said this, like, this is like a friend breakup and she's like saying that. In that capacity, I'm like, I don't think we really need like a scripted PR thought out apology. It's like, specifically in the influencer sphere, it's like this back and forth kind of drama. It fuels people and keeps things going. And I think that, you know, you can toe the line where you're like, respectful and like direct and you like do apologize for stuff, or you're like, hey, this is personal stuff, I don't want to keep it. Like, I'm not saying that you need to go hands off, like gloves off, be super messy, but I think for me there's just a difference of like, I would feel like it was kind of like fake if somebody was doing a PR apology for like allegations, like for example, and I'm not super invested in the lore so I don't know, but like about a month ago, I think, maybe a little bit less time or maybe more, I don't really know, there was like somebody on TikTok that people were like making TikTok stories about like, hey, this person, here are all my horror stories with this one person. And like, if that person put out like a written, and maybe she did, I don't really know, I didn't keep up with it super well, I just saw a few people talking about their negative experiences with this one influencer, like fellow influencers were talking about like, if that person put out like a PR like scripted apology, that would feel kind of canned and like not genuine, you know, just like just a direct to the camera, like, I'm sorry that I hurt people. Or in this case, I guess she wants to defend herself, the character, I mean. But it's just, like, I don't think that it's always appropriate to, like, go guns a-blazing or, like, be super scripted and, like, you know. Anyways, they discuss what they're going to post, when to post it. It's not, like, homophobia or racism. It's just not being a girl's girl, so they decide they'll post tomorrow morning. At Alani's place, Tallulah is upset about her phone. She says she doesn't think it's a good idea to go to a hot restaurant. And Alani's like, no, it's good to go out. It's good to be seen. And Charlie says it's good for both of us. Both of us are taking hits to our reputation. Being seen makes you seem less guilty. I don't know. In a situation like this, maybe, yeah. If somebody was involved in, like, some scandal where they said something horrendous, or they were accused of, like, like, there are serious situations where I'm like, if somebody goes out and they're, like, unbothered, it's like, okay, so you genuinely don't care that you hurt people. Like, you don't care at all. That, I wouldn't be like, oh, then it's not true. I'd be like, okay, so they're callous and they don't care about other people. Like, not to invoke her name, but, like, Colleen Ballinger seemed to just go on like everything was fine. And then she released the toxic gossip train. She's just on my mind because she just recently did a podcast. Again, that's not my sphere to talk about. There is a certain level of, like, I don't care that I've hurt people that I don't think makes things better. But, like, an interpersonal situation like this, I don't really know. Anyways, sorry. I'm, like, diving too deep into this as if these are real people and real influencers and how I would feel in real situation. Sorry. Tallulah wants to be low-key, and Alani's like, be bold. Make them look at you. Make a statement. And Charlie specifically wants to go because he wants to trick the gay community into thinking he's nice. And he puts on a hat that says, Mimi Rush fired me for being gay and Jewish. And Tallulah's like, when did you get that made? And he's like, oh, I've always had it. It's just relevant now. It's just, like, actually true now. That was funny. Because I do love, like, a really outrageous, like, silly hat or shirt like that. Like, I love things like that. That made me laugh. At an event for Dylan's school, it's like a bake sale. Maya is, like, on her phone. She's like, I feel like the kids here hate me. They can sense that I've had an abortion. She's, like, at a booth and she's, like, obsessively checking her phone. And Dylan asks if she's okay. And she says, no, the Tallulah thing is really, really upsetting her. Paulina's still posting videos. And Dylan's like, I thought the PR person was going to handle it. And Maya's like, yeah, I think it was. But she's clearly, like, hesitant and doubting Victor's approach. Dylan's like, you can handle anything. Very encouraging. I really like them as a couple. Maybe what I said last week won't come to fruition. Maybe they'll be fine. Maybe they'll be left untouched. And you know what? I wouldn't be against it. I really wouldn't. I like them. What can I say? He leaves to go get snickerdoodle sleeves, tells her to watch out for the Silver Lake moms, their secret C words. She's working on the apology, like, on her phone. She's, like, editing it. And then she sees two little girls fighting over a brownie. She breaks it up and tells them to share. One of the girls' moms comes and tells the girl who is not her, like, the little girl who is not her daughter, that she lost. Better luck next time. And then this mom tells Maya that they don't teach sharing because it teaches people pleasing. Maya says sorry, she's not a teacher and she doesn't know the rules. And then the little girl says stop saying sorry. Her mom is like, great job. We don't reinforce beta habits. When you back down, that's when people can take advantage of you. And you can see the wheels turning in Maya's head that she's like, maybe I shouldn't apologize. Maybe we shouldn't. And I thought that was really fascinating. I really, really like that. She's like, maybe, like, the wheels are turning and she's like, maybe we shouldn't apologize. Maybe we shouldn't back down. Maybe we shouldn't, like, agree that Paulina's version of events is true. Even if they're doing it indirectly, if that makes sense. Anyways, she, like, leaves the bake sale. Alani, Charlie, and Tallulah arrive at Ginny. The cute chef checks Tallulah out, and then Charlie tells them to let him order. He's, like, on a mission to be super nice to the service workers and says they should pray for a gay waiter. The waiter comes, Charlie's, like, schmoozing him, being super friendly. Someone is taking photos of Tallulah, these two girls are, and she's upset. And they're like, maybe, and her friends are trying to comfort her and be like, maybe they're fans. Alani says haters are just fans on a bad day. And Charlie's like, they're probably Reddit girls who just, like, want to talk shit about you and, like, guess who your ex-boyfriend is. And then Tallulah's like, what are they saying about me on Reddit? Like, she starts to freak out. She's clearly very paranoid and, like, anxious. And this is where Tallulah began to win me over. Not that I want to see a character struggle. I mean, I guess she's a character. She's not a real person. Because I'm like, I don't want to see people suffer. And it's not that I want to see her suffer, but I like this vulnerability and this genuine, like, I don't know. I liked what this spiral and the way that she was freaked out about her image, what that said about her, and like how she functions as an influencer. Like, I really liked Tallulah in this episode. Anyways, Alani says that this is like a video game to them. Give them one day and they'll say Tallulah fucked Hunter Biden. And she's like, why would I fuck Hunter Biden? And Charlie's like, excuse you, he's ripped and likes to party. That was funny to me. Tallulah wants to see Alani's phone. Alani like doesn't allow her to. She's very clearly like wants to know what. And that's something that I find very interesting. And again, made me like Tallulah more because I feel like that's an interesting aspect to the like, and it's why I don't like the idea of sending influencers hate. And again, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be held accountable for their actions, but it's just like, I don't understand what's productive about like bombarding somebody's comments or messages about how much you hate them. It's like, I think people should be held accountable, and like backlash, I'm not saying. And I feel like I've said this before, maybe not on the podcast, maybe just on my TikTok, but like for me, I remember because I was thinking about, I said this in regards to the Selling Sunset, Emma, Chriselle situation, because Emma was talking about how she got hate. And I'm like, there's a difference between getting targeted hate and then getting backlash because of something that somebody you're associating with or something you posted, you know? So it's like, do I think that Emma probably did get hate? Yes, but I think there's a difference between that and people just being like, I don't like that you're dating somebody who's MAGA, I'm disappointed in you. Getting backlash for doing something shitty, or getting backlash for having shitty views, or being in a relationship with somebody who has shitty views and therefore excusing it, that is not hate. So it's like, I'm not saying that people, anyways, I don't need to get into like a whole tangent about it, but it's like, I do think there is a very human, you know, that's why I just don't think it's productive to send people hate. I think you should just unfollow people. That's the best way. Mute them, block them, remove them from your life. And again, this is a situation where it's like what Tallulah did wrong was like an interpersonal issue. Like, these are the kind of dramas with people that I really am just like, I don't want to like discuss. Like, I don't have a stake in the game because this is like two people's own beef. This isn't like somebody platforming hatred in the same way that like having shitty beliefs. I'm like, I think if people comment and are like, I don't support the fact that you support these people, I don't think but like there's a thing where it's like, what if Tallulah was a bad friend? Why are we going to hate her for being a bad friend? If I think somebody is like a bad friend and therefore a bad person, like an influencer, let's say, I'm just going to not follow them. I don't need to send them hate. Like, that's their own personal, interpersonal, you know what I mean? So, like, in this situation, I'm like, people just love, I don't like the idea of, like, witch hunts and, like, all of that, because I think sometimes people use those kind of, or, like, cancellation, people use that as, like, a very blanket term of, like, if you're getting backlash, you do something wrong and you get backlash, that means you're being canceled or it's a witch hunt. Like, I think those terms are overused, but I do think there is something real about people wanting to hate somebody, and people, especially when it comes to women, people just hating people and sending them droves of hate, and, like, they're ugly and they're stupid and, like, everything, there's nothing they could do right. Like, I do think that is true. Like, I think there's nuance, because I think there are people who do bad things or just make mistakes and hurt people. Maybe they're not quote unquote bad things categorically, but just like somebody causes harm, somebody does something that people don't like, and they get backlash and they get negative feedback, and they think I'm being canceled, this is a witch hunt. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's nuance where people, I feel like, use those terms to avoid accountability. And then I also think that there is a time when people are just attacked. Anyway, sorry, I'm going on all these unnecessary tangents. But it's just like, I appreciated that, like, Tallulah's, like, I liked what that developed about Tallulah's character. And I liked Alani's commentary about, like, it being a game and people, like, because I do think that is an aspect of the public backlash that I was talking about. I do think people forget the fact that the people behind the screens are real people. There is like which is why I genuinely just always try, whether I'm watching somebody on reality TV, whether I'm like consuming somebody's content, I always try to go into things with the knowledge of like, these are strangers to me, and I can have an opinion on their behaviors or what happened on a TV show that I'm commenting on, but I'm not going to talk about who they are as if I know them, because I don't know them. And I also think, like, I don't know, people act like influencers, reality TV people, contestants are like characters in a TV show. And it's like, no, they're real life people who cannot be reduced to just like, you know what I mean? Anyways. I liked this storyline. Apologies for, and I like the commentary, because I do think people view it as a game. They view them as characters instead of like real human beings. Moving on. Maya sees Dylan outside of the school, apologizes for leaving the bake sale, but she needs to deal with the Tallulah stuff, and he agrees. Paulina made a video with a photo of him doing coke, and now he's a meme. They're calling him Coke Larry. Maya's like, Maya doesn't want to apologize. Dylan agrees. Like, now he's in this, and if somebody at the school sees, he could be in trouble. Then the principal comes out, and he saw the meme, and he basically, like, asks him for coke. Not, like, directly, but, like, that was the gist. And after the fact, he's like, so I need to get him coke. Which was so unserious, but at least Dylan's not in trouble, because I really like Dylan, and I'd be sad if he, like, got fired over this. Anyways, back at the restaurant, Charlie's, like, putting on a show about how delicious the food is, and specifically they're eating rabbit, and Alani is, like, not wanting to eat the rabbit. She says she's a vegetarian when the meat still looks like an animal. Like, I love her. I'm a vegetarian all the time. Anyways, Charlie's like, Tallulah, why aren't you carrying your weight? Because she's not eating anything. She's clearly, like, anxious and has no appetite. And in her defense, when they were deciding what to order, she's like, I don't really care. Like, she's clearly anxious and spiraling and, like, paranoid about being watched, and, like, the chef, and, like, I understood Tallulah in this moment. Tallulah steps away, says she's going to the bathroom. Alani says, since we haven't finished the carrots, maybe we should leave them with the rabbit, like, as, like, a veneration or a little offering. Like, it was so cute. She's like, I want to honor this rabbit. I feel so bad that was so sweet to me. I don't know. I love her. I can't explain it. I love her. Like, that was so wholesome. Because I think, and not to go on a whole, like, vegetarian, like, rant, but I think there is something very beautiful about people. Like, the fact that she, like, acknowledges that it's an animal. Like, I don't know. Made me sad for the rabbit. Obviously, it's not a real rabbit, but anyways, moving on. Tallulah's in the kitchen, and she's, like, trying to use the reservation iPad thing to check the internet, and the cute chef is like, oh, it took you long enough to get back here. They flirt. It's very cute. And Tallulah basically mentions that her phone got wet because the chef, like, is like, you know, there are easier ways to get a reservation regarding the iPad thing. And the chef's like, did you put it in rice? And Tallulah's like, you don't have any rice dishes on your menu. And the chef's like, there's a storage room in the back. We could look for rice if your friends can spare you for a little bit. And then Tallulah's like, they think I went to the bathroom. The chef's like, oh, and you're doing ketamine. Tallulah's, like, taken aback, right? She's like, I don't do ketamine. She starts getting upset. Clearly, she's like, again, and I understand because she was already paranoid, but the fact that people are watching her and people have seen the video and people are judging her and all of these things and what they're saying about me on Reddit. And now suddenly she's flirting with somebody and it's cute and it's nice. And then boom, they mention the ketamine thing and she's like, fuck, I can't escape it. I understood this, and this is where I really started to like Tallulah. This episode, I mean, not like this exact moment. Anyways, Maya arrives at the restaurant and takes Tallulah outside. Charlie's, like, full. He's trying to eat more. Alani's full too, is, like, begging him to stop trying to force food down her throat. Charlie really does not want the waiter talking shit. The waiter comes back. He's like, this was all delicious. Your recommendations are great. The waiter's like, are we splitting it? And then Alani's like, oh, I have it. And Charlie stops her and he's like, no, it's on me. And then he tips really big too. Is like, service workers make the world go round. Thank you for all you do. And then the waiter is like, I can't express how much this means to me. Me and my wife lost everything during the Altadena fire. And Charlie is taken aback because he's like, wife, because he thought the waiter was gay, because his whole point was that he wanted the gay server community. He wanted to win them back. He's like, that was all for nothing. He says, this was supposed to be an investment for me, and I just wasted $612 on a straight fire victim queer baiter. What's the point of being nice if no one that can help me sees it? That was funny. Meanwhile, Tallulah and Maya are outside, and Tallulah's like, everybody's seen the video. What are we gonna do? And Maya's like, well, the people at Alyssa 180, they want you to apologize, but I don't think you should. And Tallulah's like, I'm not going to apologize. Who cares about the Tresemme deal? It's basically the attitude they have. They're like, we're gonna destroy her. They're super excited about the fact that they both have the same opinion on what to do in the situation. The waiter brings a jar of rice from the chef out to Tallulah, and on the lid inside is the chef's phone number. They're super excited, and then Maya's like, let's take this bitch down regarding Paulina. At Alani's place, Charlie's looking through Alani's closet for something that gives underdog for like Tallulah to wear during this video, and the brands he mentions are Brandy Melville, Anthropology, and Madewell. Now, I've never shopped at Brandy Melville, so I don't know how the prices are in that store, but Anthropology is really expensive. I've never been able to buy anything at Anthropology because that shit's too expensive. Now, Madewell, I do have a few Madewell jeans, and I do really like Madewell. Madewell is also very expensive to me personally. One time I was at Madewell because I really love their candles, and their candles are like decently priced for like the kind of candles they are. At least in terms of the candles I buy, I've never, like the Madewell candles aren't like super expensive for me personally, because I really invest in a candle. Anyways, I really like their candles and like accessories and stuff. I have a lot of earrings that I got from Madewell. I really like Madewell. Also a lot of jeans from Madewell. Like I like Madewell. I've been to Madewell a lot. I remember one time back when the Grove had a Madewell, like 2 years ago. I was so sad when the Madewell at the Grove closed. Anyways, I went in and I saw a jacket I really liked, and I was like, oh my god, I love this jacket. It was like hundreds of dollars. I'm like, I can't afford that. Also, I live in LA, so what's the point? But Madewell to me is expensive. Anthropology, even more so. Like for me, in my mind, I'm like, okay, Brandy Melville, I feel like is a bit more affordable than, none of these I would think of as dressing like an underdog. But maybe I'm just, I see that, you know what, the thing is, I don't really shop a lot of like new stuff. Most of the stuff I buy is from like flea markets or clothes my sister gave me. But back in the day when I went shopping, like at stores when I was in high school and stuff, like Madewell, I really liked Madewell. I got some good staple long-term pieces. Brandy Melville, again, never went. And Anthropology, I would go in there and everything would be like thousands of dollars. So this is just funny to me. But anyways, Maya says for the takedown video, Tallulah should be like chill, bring up the Coke thing, but casually. And then she's like, is this enough to take her down? I wish I had one more thing to put her in internet jail. And then Alani's like, oh my god, jail. That's where I know her from, right? Because earlier in the episode, she thought that Paulina was familiar. They're like, you met her in jail? And she's like, no, in Spanish class. Like they went to the same high school and her parents did jail, quote unquote. She's like, just Google it. And Maya's like, I've been Googling her. Like, nothing's showing up. Alani's like, no, back in the day, she went by her full name, Paulina Grace Rikers. And they're like, oh my god, like that Rikers. They sold it 100 years ago. And Charlie's like, she's a prison Nepo baby. And Alani's like, now her parents do like chemical weapon, like they make chemical weapons. And her dad had to move overseas because the government said he was too good at business. Charlie's like, they're war criminals. Tallulah records her takedown video. Maya asks where Charlie got the bratty t-shirt that Tallulah's wearing. And he's like, it's $900. I just made her wear it backwards. And Maya's like super happy because it looks like shit. And like, you know, she's very much excited about the whole takedown video and the way that they decided to handle it. The next day, they're at a coffee shop, and Maya's like, it's insane how many people are coming out with stories about Paulina on social media. And Alani says, and I wrote this down because it was just, you know, a throwaway comment, but it was so poetic. I love her. She says, the internet is dangerous but fair, like the ocean. Now, I don't agree that the internet is dangerous but fair. Dangerous, I agree. Fair, I completely disagree with, especially when it comes to women. I don't think the internet is fair. Mostly because the internet is a reflection of society, and society is not fair. Again, especially not in regards to women. Maya gets a text from her boss, Alyssa, that says that Tresemme pulled out of the deal, and she hopes that Maya knows what she's doing. Balenciaga messaged Tallulah, and they want her address to send her a new bag, so it's all very exciting. And then the episode ends with them being like, Alani, why are you wearing one of Paulina's necklaces? And she like defends herself, and it's like whole cute, and then the episode ends. Really like this episode. In my opinion, the show's getting better. I'm liking the characters that I wasn't particularly drawn to. I'm falling more in love with the characters I did like. I like where the storyline's going with the tension of like, I always think about a show and like where we meet the characters, right? Because very often in a show, there's some kind of turning point that we're going into a new phase of life for these characters. And I think Tallulah re-entering Maya's life and her becoming a manager, it's super interesting, the place where we meet these characters, because you kind of see, and I do think my prediction for where the show is going to go, I think that Maya is going to leave her job eventually, because I think the way that Alyssa 180 approaches managing talent will eventually like become incompatible. I feel like it already kind of is, but I feel like Maya's going to get to a point where she's like, I don't feel like this is authentic to like what I want to be as a manager. And I think that's just because when it comes to like corporations and like those kind of things, it's like obviously a lot more by the book versus like, I think with working with Tallulah personally and that being her friend, I think she sees like Tallulah beyond the brand of who she is. She sees her as like an authentic human being who she then wants to like portray that on social media and as an influencer, but she doesn't want Tallulah to like be a brand. I feel like that is where we're going. Next episode, based on the preview, it seems like there's some tension with Tallulah maybe doubting Maya, so maybe that'll be, I don't know. I'm excited to see. Also, Elijah Wood's in it. He's annoying on Yellow Jackets, but it did warm my heart to see him on my screen again. I can't lie. I do hope he dies in season 4. Walter, not the actor. Hope he lives a long life. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say about I Love LA episode 3. Moving on to The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives season 3. Now, as I said, this is not a structured recap, so I'm just kind of going to be sharing my thoughts. I am going to try to go in order. So the season opens with, we ended with the cliffhanger of season 2, like what happened with Marciano, Demi, Jesse, that whole thing. Now, I hadn't watched the reunion until like literally 2 days before season 3 came out, because the reunion came out like months after season 2 came out, and so I didn't watch it. I forgot about it, and I'm not a fan of Nick Viall, to be quite honest, so I just ended up not watching it. Plus, okay, I watched a good amount of like, I saw Connor's stuff on social media, like his story. I saw the stuff that I was interested in clips wise, but I did watch that and it was kind of left on like, you'll have to find out. I can't legally talk about it. Basically, Layla's sitting on this, like Marciano said that Jesse and him had sex thing, and Jesse and Layla have a conversation where Jesse admits that she did have an affair with him. She kissed him. Okay, also, I'm pretty sure she says that they were separated. However, every time she talks about this after, she doesn't mention the fact that they were separated. And they do separate, her and her husband separate in the season. So I'm wondering if that was like edited in. She never talks about them being separated when she talks about the cheating. Maybe she doesn't want it to seem like an excuse. I don't know. But basically, she's like, I did have an affair with, like, I wanted to keep the secret of my affair. And I was like, oh my God, she had an affair. Then she was like, we kissed once and then we had an emotional affair. And I was like, not that kissing somebody one time isn't bad. Cheating is bad. You shouldn't cheat on people. For me, like most things, cheating exists on a spectrum, right? There's like, you kiss somebody once, that's bad. That's a violation of trust. Being unfaithful in any capacity is bad, but there's obviously degrees to cheating, just as there's degrees to everything. So, and I don't know, maybe it's because they're Mormon, but for me, I'm like, I wouldn't classify that as an affair. It's like, okay, you cheated on him and then you stayed in touch. You were kind of flirty. I don't know. Maybe I don't. For me, what I would consider an emotional affair, and maybe I don't understand this because I've never been in a romantic relationship, but I'm like, kissing somebody once and then staying friendly with them, I'm like, to me, that's not like an emotional affair. For me, I would consider somebody having an emotional affair if like they were really confiding in that person and they were leaning on that person in the capacity of like, I'm your partner, I should be the person, you know what I mean? Like there's a level of intimacy that I imagine that I would personally, Amy Cardinale, would want in a partnership if I was in a romantic relationship. That like, not that you can't have that kind of intimacy with other people in like a friendly way, but I feel like that is what, for me, I would feel like an emotional, it's like, you know, the idea of like a work wife, a work husband. Like if my partner was treating somebody like they were in a romantic partnership, for me, that would be an emotional affair. Being a little flirty, I don't know if I'd consider that an emotional affair. Maybe I'm wrong. And obviously people have different boundaries and her husband didn't like it. But basically, she said she had an affair with him, and then she's like, we kissed once. He's saying they had sex. I don't care. I don't care about the Jesse Marciano stuff. I care about it insofar that it contextualizes other things that I care about. But I have to be honest, I'm not really invested in because while, yes, it's bad, you shouldn't cross boundaries in your relationship. To me, that just didn't, there were a lot more interesting things this season. And I think it's also hard because basically Jesse's whole storyline this season in terms of her relationship was they do eventually get separated. He's really angry. He already knew about this, like her husband, but he's really angry that it's coming out on TV. Now, that's kind of silly to me. I'm not saying that people on reality TV shows aren't allowed privacy. I think people are allowed privacy, 100%. I don't think you need to share everything about your life to be on reality TV. But I think when it's something like that, specifically because it involves somebody from another thing, and because to me, it wasn't like, okay, I think maybe if Jesse just like kissed a guy once, had a bit of a flirtatious relationship with him, and there wasn't the added layer of like, this guy is part of the reason there's a rift between Demi and the rest of Mom Talk, like maybe it wouldn't have escalated. Like maybe then it could have been like something they don't talk about. But because this guy is like somewhat active in your circle and Demi's involved, I'm like, how did you not think that was gonna come out? I don't know. I really didn't like him this season. Not that I particularly had any feelings towards him before, but he really irritated me this season. Jordan, I think, is his name. He really irritated me. I'm sorry to that man. I know nothing of him. The thing that irritated me about him is that it very much felt like he was worried about appearances. And I'm not saying that there isn't an added layer of hurt that comes with a public betrayal, right? I'm not saying, like, I understand that, again, there are layers to things, and being personally betrayed is already difficult enough. When you're going through that on a wide scale and a lot of people are going to be giving opinions, I can understand that upsetting you. Where Jordan really, really upset me and frustrated me is that he kept talking about how he was emasculated. Like, it wasn't a like, she betrayed my trust and I don't like, it was a like, I'm less of a man because she did this. And that really irritated me because it's like, who on earth fucking thinks that? You talking about how you're emasculated, to me that makes you less of a man. And not even that I believe in the concept of somebody being a man or not being a man, but it's like something that makes me view you as less secure in your masculinity is constantly talking about how your wife making this mistake is like an attack on your masculinity. That's where he lost me. I'm like, you know what? You are emasculated to me now. Because that's loser behavior. It's like, don't we know at this point? Haven't we established that being cheated on isn't about something that you're lacking? Could it be a sign that something's wrong in the relationship? Yeah. But if somebody cheats on you, that's not about you. It's about them, because at the end of the day, you should break up with somebody. I understand that if you're married, it's a little bit more complicated, which is why I'm confused about the separation. Because for me, if they were separated, then I don't really feel like she cheated on him. Now, I'm not in the relationship, so it's not up to me, but it's like, for me, if you're struggling in a relationship, you should obviously break up with the person instead of exploring things while you're in the relationship. If you're married, I understand that you can't just immediately break up with somebody, so maybe you want to take a separation and decide. It's a lot more complicated. You have kids involved. But then if you're separated, I don't know. I'm not to get into the weeds because I wasn't super invested in them because I'm not invested in their relationship enough to care either way. I didn't like the way he yelled at her and he really irritated me this season. But genuinely, if they stay together, I'm not going to be particularly upset. Like last season, or for the last 2 seasons, when Jen and Zach were having relationship issues, I genuinely was invested in the sense that like I was like, I want to know what happens because if she stays with him, I'm going to have like a feeling about it. And if she leaves him, then I'm going to have a feeling about it. Jordan and Jesse, it's like, I really don't care. I really don't care if they stay together. And it's not like on a personal level. Like, I think she's like, I have nothing against, I actually like her. But in terms of their relationship, it's like, I'm not invested in it one way or another. I'm kind of like, whatever path that goes is what will be best for them. Like, I don't know. I'm not invested. But he did bother me. Marciano comes in and they do a lie detector test. And it's unclear if they had sex, if they didn't have sex. I really don't care. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm at this point, and maybe other people are really invested and they do really want to know if they had sex, if they didn't have sex. I really don't care. That's not my business. And it wouldn't change the situation for me because I don't care. about their relationship. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm being mean. It's genuinely nothing against her. I find her lovely. I don't like him, but I also am not like particularly, I don't hate him enough or think that they're like, the thing is, they are Mormon. So there is a level for me where I'm like, they have different approaches to relationships and standards and stuff that I'm like, it might not make sense to me, because in my life, if I was friends with somebody, I'd be like, I mean, I actually don't know, because I don't have any friends who are married. So, and I'm not saying divorce is easy, but I'm not saying you should just get divorced. They also get married really fast. Anyways, he really irritated me. I wish her the best. And throughout the season, they go on a trial separation. Basically, he's mad that the cameras are going to find out. Then we see them, I think in episode 2, she's like, we separated. Her mom is like, they should have been separated a while ago, which was crazy to me. And then the other girl, she tells the other girls they want to find out, they want to get to the bottom of the Marciano thing. He does a lie detector test, which, by the way, the funniest thing to me with this lie detector test is like, why is nobody like, these, they don't prove anything. Like, they track your breathing and your heart rate and all those things, but it's like, a lie detector test can't definitively tell you if somebody's lying. That's not how that works. So I'm just like, nobody brought that up, because there were some questions that were like inconclusive, and I'm like, okay. Or like other ones where it was like strong reaction. It's like, maybe that just means she's lying. Maybe that means she's more anxious about that question, and not necessarily because she's lying. I don't know. Nobody was like, these aren't that useful. But anyway, they do a lie detector test, and it's very much like, it's still up in the air. It's like, did they have sex? Did they not? Hi, sorry. It's the next day, so if the audio changed at all, that's why. I started getting tired, and I wanted to give The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives its proper due, so I decided to finish recording the next night. This episode will probably be out a little bit late, but it is what it is. So anyways, I did talk about the Jesse Marciano stuff. I kind of want to go back to some stuff that happened in episode 1, because I kind of breezed past episode 1 to talk specifically about the Jesse Marciano thing. But in episode 1, it's Layla's birthday, and the way Layla's birthday went down made me really sad. Like, maybe it was just me, but basically she invites Chase, who is Miranda's ex, and also from season 2, he caused issues at the Halloween party. He also is a flop podcast, so I relate to him in that regard. I have to be honest, every time people, the thing is, okay, I understand that I'm in a different category than Chase because, one, I'm a woman. No, I'm kidding. But I'm not kidding. Male podcasters are out of control, you know? Anyways, obviously my podcast is not like Chase's, but that's besides the point. My point is, whenever people talk about like a flop podcast, I resonate. I'm like, that's me. I also have a flop podcast. Me and Chase relate in that capacity. So anyways, but Chase is dating one of Layla's friends, and so she didn't want him to like not have to come and it'd be awkward, so she ended up inviting him. But like Macy and Michaela took issue with this, and Layla was like, you can leave. I didn't, like, he called me right before. Like, she didn't know that he was going and like not tell them necessarily. Like, she found out more so at the last minute. And like, I think both parties are valid, and they did squash this beef. Like, it wasn't like prolonged beef, and I think that's great. I think that's human. Like, I think Macy and Michaela have the right to be upset that Chase is there, and Layla also has the right to invite whoever she wants to her birthday party. And it's not like he did cause an issue. If it was one thing where like he came and he caused an issue and he provoked things, maybe I'd be more on Michaela and Macy's side. But it's just like, I think when you are in such a small circle, I just don't think, and I don't know, because people have the right to have their own boundaries, but I don't think anything that Chase has done is like particularly inexcusable where he can't be welcomed. Obviously, they're allowed to have their limits, but if it was like an intimate thing and it was like just them, and then like it was a lot of people were there. He didn't cause any problems. He came with his girlfriend. I don't know. It wasn't a that big of a deal, but I understand why the women are wary, because he talks shit about them on his podcast, and obviously that's shitty. Okay, Chase, if you ever listen to this, which you probably won't, but as one flop podcaster to another flop podcast, maybe find a niche that isn't like interpersonal drama. I think it's hard too, because it's like, I understand why that is stuff that Chase talks about, because it's like, what else are people tuning in for besides like his commentary on the people in his life? I don't know. You know, not to judge. People have the right to have different kinds of podcasts. It's not my niche. I don't like the idea of interpersonal drama being a podcast because I feel like that's not productive. Like the older I get, the more I'm like, I don't want to go to the internet for like validation because like maybe some people will agree with me, maybe some people won't. But, and I'm not saying it's never appropriate. Like, do I think there's a moment that you could like poll the audience? Like, I love a good am I the asshole Reddit situation. But I think for me, it's just like, I don't want a bunch of strangers' opinions on the stuff I'm dealing with. I don't know. I don't find it productive. Anyways, that ended up like not becoming a big thing. But I did feel bad for Layla that like her birthday kind of became a big to-do, much ado about nothing, but they did squash that beef, and like I'm glad. And I will say something that I really enjoyed from Layla this season is really like standing firm and I really liked Layla's storyline this season. I found it a lot more interesting because I feel like last season Layla's main storyline was like around her relationship. And he wasn't even there that much, but it was like, that felt like the main thing. It was like Layla's never had an orgasm, and it was very much like, you know, that regard, where this season, it felt very much like Layla coming into her own and like making decisions for herself and not trying to be a people pleaser. And like my favorite part of this season for Layla, in terms of like Layla's arc, was I really enjoyed the part where she decides to like go to a black hairdresser because she's like noticing hair loss. And she is so kind, unlike to me. Not to, you know, but I think like the way, and maybe she just had a roadmap to not like what not to do based off of what Demi did in season 2 in terms of the hair thing. But the way that Layla handled going to a new hairdresser was so kind and respectful of being like, it's not Jay-Z, I just need something different. And I was worried that Jessie wouldn't receive it the best, but Jessie was super kind and like super validating that they don't have a lot of black hairdressers and that's not something she was taught. And it was great. It ended up being great. And I think, I don't know. Okay, here's the thing. I really don't like hating people on reality TV because I feel like reality TV villains get enough internet backlash. Like, I don't like adding to a pylon. So I'm not trying to shit on Demi as a human being. I believe that everybody can grow and change. And like, I'm not trying to condemn her. However, Demi, like last season, I found her, she rubbed me the wrong way in some moments. This season for me, Demi really like crossed into a line where I really don't like her, and it feels now like it's not like a like just there's one conflict. It feels like this is like a pattern of how she approaches issues and conflicts and like not taking accountability and not like the way she frames situations. Like I find it to be very like I really Demi is a very confusing person for me as a viewer. I really don't like her. That's just my opinion. And I also don't know her. I don't like who she is on TV, but I don't know her individually. And I'm not trying to make a statement about who she is as a person because that's not mine to decide. That's the people in her life to decide if they want to be in her life or not. Like, I'm just one girl who's commenting on what I see on reality TV. But at the end of the day, these are real people whose lives I am not a part of. So I'm not trying to like talk about them as who they like. Anyways, I feel like this hair situation is such a clear difference in how like Layla went about it versus how Demi went about it. Like I feel like that really highlights an issue that I personally have with Demi, and it's the way she communicates and the way she handles things. Because even after the fact, in terms of the hair thing, she's like, well, I was just relaying what other people said, or like, you know, and it's like, you could just be like, hey, I'm sorry that hurt your feelings. I'm sorry that I upset you. That was inconsiderate. I cannot think the times that Demi genuinely says, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. That was a shitty thing to do, are few and far between. Overwhelmingly, she's like, I handled it the best that I could. There's no facing the fact that like she handled something wrong. She did something wrong. Or even if she doesn't want to say wrong, she doesn't want to place that judgment on it. There's no, I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry that I caused pain. You know what I mean? Like Demi's overwhelming attitude towards things is like, I did the best I could though. Like, why are you judging me for how I handled it? In a way that's like, or excusing it. Like, I didn't say you were bad at hair. These people had issues with color, so I didn't want to have Taylor go, like, it's always an excuse instead of just being like, I shouldn't have done that, I'm sorry. And I don't know, I'm sorry. Like, I don't, and maybe she can grow and change, and I'm really not trying to, like, shit on Demi. I don't like her, I have to be honest. I'm sorry to Demi. But anyways, that issue with the birthday party, that was squashed. At episode 2, I believe, is Michaela's birthday. All their birthdays, I guess, are, because I don't remember there being a birthday last season. All their birthdays are like back to back, seemingly. I say that, it's like 2 birthdays. But Michaela has a birthday. It's like elevated St. Patrick's Day. And this birthday party was overwhelmingly like not dramatic. The only dramatic part was that in trying to clear her name, Jessie started reading like her conversation with Marciano to maybe prove, like, to, in her mind, prove that they didn't have sex. And it's like, I don't think, I don't know. I think for me, it's like I still feel very confused because, again, it's like he wasn't very firm. At the end of episode 2, I believe, he's like, no, we didn't have sex. Like, he admits to the women. It's not like a lie that he, even from the beginning on the phone, he was like, I don't know. I find him to be a very confusing, unreliable narrator. I don't really care about whether they had sex, whether they didn't. I will say, I don't think that this was the right thing to do in terms of reading the conversations aloud. I don't really know if that particularly helped her case, because all it did was kind of be like, here, this is how flirty I was with him, which, like, doesn't make you look better. I mean, I guess transparency is good, and, like, you're not hiding. I don't know. As I said last night when I was recording, I am not invested enough in the Marciano Jessie thing. I don't care if they had sex or if they didn't have sex. Like, I'm not particularly fiending for the answer. I am a little bit, like, in terms of, like, the reunion, it's gonna come out December 4th. And I am interested in terms of that, I am interested in the timeline. Like, were Jordan and Jessie separated? Were they not? Like, there are some details in that regard that I am interested in. But I genuinely don't care about the minutia of, like, the extent of their intimate relationship, sexual, text, emotional, physical. I don't care. Maybe that's just me, but I genuinely don't care. The beginning of the season is really dedicated to the Marciano-Jessie dynamic, and they do a lie detector test, and I don't really care about that, as I've said, unfortunately, many times. The lie detector test, I think I talked about this last night, is, like, inconclusive. Nobody's saying that that's irrelevant, like, that's stupid. In terms of the other women, Whitney is, like, not in the group. I think they say in the first episode that she's not in Mom Talk. There was contract negotiation things that apparently she wanted Oscar tickets and to be in a scripted show. Whitney later in the season says that the Oscar tickets thing isn't true, but the scripted show thing is true. And I'll get to Whitney's arc in a second. Meanwhile, like, Demi's not on the show. Whitney is not on the show because of contract negotiations. Jen is still in Arizona. So that's kind of where we are at the beginning of the season. Taylor's also not in episode 1 because she goes to a therapy retreat and she comes back. And I have to say, I really liked Taylor's arc this season. I felt like she was, like, I genuinely really feel like she's doing work on herself. I feel like she handled conflict really well this season, and even other people's conflict of, like, trying to hear people out and, like, see Jordan's side. And, like, she did a really good job of, like, being like, two things can exist at the same time. Like, she seems like she learned skills and she's putting them into place. I genuinely, that brought me joy to see. I always am rooting for somebody to heal and do better and be more regulated, and I think she did a good job this season. Because I even think about, like, the fact in season 2 during the Halloween party, Demi's like, he put his hands on me, and, like, Taylor in past seasons has been very easy, like, very quick to be like, they suck and write people off. And I feel like this season, she did a good job of being like, of seeing the nuance to situations and not reacting super emotionally. And I was, like, really, really excited to see that. But Jen does come back. They want to have their child in Utah because they have support there and everything, which I think is great. In episode 3, which is called The Book of Demi, which is so unserious, this is when, like, the whole Marciano says that Demi was involved in convincing him to throw Jessie under the bus. Like, that's when this really comes to light. And meanwhile, Demi is still not on the show. She, like, I don't remember if this was episode 3 or 4, but I think it's episode 3. It actually doesn't matter what episode it's in. They go to an event and Demi is still not filming, but like she gets into a fight with Layla because Layla's like, I'm like not cool with her, obviously, because she's like, I'm friends with Jesse. Like, I don't know why you're acting like nothing's wrong. Like, Demi's acting like nothing is going on. Meanwhile, she's actively being like, Jesse slept with Marciano. I don't even know. Like, at some point, she like, there's an event that isn't filmed, and they have like footage that the women themselves filmed at this influencer event that like Demi's there, and she like gestures to Jesse of like how it's fucking Marciano, and it's like this whole big thing. And this, again, I really struggled with Demi this season because I personally want to see the nuance and understand where people are coming from and like give people grace. I really do. And I just found her approach to things continuously very confusing and very upsetting. Like, really upsetting. It's like, because later in the season, because Marciano says that him and Demi kissed at the villa. Then he had an emotional affair with Jesse after. Demi's version of events is that they did not kiss, but he did grope her. She is like, he sexually assaulted me. The women take issue with that because they're like, you continue to text him and do all of these things after. And she's like, people react weirdly in these situations. And that is true. People do. I think, not to rhyme, sorry. But the part where Demi loses me is just, it feels really inconsistent. Like, what do you mean that this man is a predator, a sexual predator, as you labeled him, but you took his word over your friend Jesse's, and you took his word to slander your friend? Then I don't understand. I don't follow the thread. Like, her motivations feel very confusing. And it's not to say that maybe everything is true and that is sometimes people act illogically, but I just find it very confusing. And I think the part that really gets to me is, and we see this come up later in the season when they start doing press for season 2, which I loved that this was included in the season, like the behind the scenes of like a season has come out, like, and we're doing the press for it. And then we get after the reunion too. I like the timeline that we got of like the behind the scenes of when season 2 was airing. And they relitigate the whole Halloween, he put his hands on me debacle. And I thought it was really interesting the way Miranda was talking about how she's like, this is where it kind of connects to what's going on right now with Demi and what she's accusing Marciano of, because the way she talked about the situation with Chase, it feels, and that is where I genuinely struggle with Demi. And I think somebody can be dishonest one time and that doesn't mean they're always dishonest. And I really don't want to like disbelieve Demi's story. Do I think it's possible he groped her? Yes. For me, it's not even about that. Like, I believe that. I think that she has taken that and like, I don't know. It's genuinely such a like uncomfortable situation to talk about because I don't want to ever like judge how somebody handles a situation like that. I think it's just hard because it's like, Demi isn't able to be like when they relitigate in press the whole he put his hands on me Chase debacle, Miranda is like, you said that he shoved you, because she like mentions that, like, during a press interview, she's like, it was a shove, and Miranda like defends Chase, and they talk about it after, and she's like, well, he's the father of my children, like, I'm not gonna, a shove, it matters what words you use to, and I agreed with Miranda like 100% in the situation. And I think that's like where Demi really loses me. And she cries on the phone to her husband and she's like, why are we still judging women for how they respond to men mistreating them or men being douchebags? And it's like, at the end of the day, yes, if somebody harms you, them harming you, that is still an issue, but you're not allowed to do whatever you want because somebody harmed you. You know what I mean? And it's not that I think that you should be judged harsher for reacting than the person who did the thing, but it's like, with some distance, you should be able to be like, that made me uncomfortable, but I understand that he wasn't trying to shove me. Like, that is the part where, to me, I feel like there's a disconnect, because somebody's behavior could have harmed you and caused you distress and maybe even have been harmful. Like, somebody could have shoved you. That doesn't mean that you have to, like, that you can't be responsible for how you reacted then from there. If somebody yells at me And that sends me like, and I get triggered by that, and then I yell back at them. That doesn't mean that I have the right to then like mistreat them back. You know, your reactions are still your responsibility, and there's like a proportion to things. There's nuance and there's context to everything. It's just so black and white with Demi, where it's like, yes, okay, he touched you and that made you uncomfortable. We still need to look at the facts of the situation. How is it a year later and you're not able to be like, he didn't shove me? Like, at the end of the day, what happened was he brushed past you. Maybe he touched your hip. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. It was unclear in the camera. Let's say he did touch your hip. What you then did was escalate the situation to the point where you go and tell your husband that this man put his hands on you. Those words have implications. I don't really think that somebody brushing past you or even tapping you lightly is putting their hands on you. And I think it's dangerous to accuse people of things to that degree. You can say, hey, you touched me, that made me uncomfortable, without saying he put his hands on me. And that is what Miranda was trying to explain. It's like, yes, he touched you and touching you was wrong, but you have to describe it accurately. Like, Demi was kind of like, well, he touched me and that was wrong. And it's like, yes, but things have layers to them. And it's the same thing. I think the moment that Demi really, like, genuinely, like, I feel like she lost me completely, and I really, at this point, I was like, I don't like her, is when she was talking about the situation with Marciano. She brought up the fact that Michaela and Macy have both been survivors of sexual violence, in order to be like, of all the people who, like, should believe me, it should be you guys, or something like that. And I took a lot of issue with this because I think, again, there's layers and there's nuance to everything. Being groped is wrong. That's distressing, and it can be genuinely traumatizing. I'm not saying that, like, you have to be assaulted to a certain degree for it to be traumatizing or distressing or, like, have long-lasting impacts. But there is psychologically something it's a completely different thing to go through what Michaela went through, to go through what Macy went through. And I find that to be, like, genuinely such a disservice. Like, I personally have been a victim of certain kinds of violence, but I would just never compare. I think there needs to be a layer where you can be like, this person harmed me, without then being like, and I don't know. I hated the way she handled that. I'm sorry. I really hated the way she handled that. I hated the fact that she was, like, in defending the way that she handled things with Marciano and continuing to text him. I hated the fact that she was like, well, why does somebody who's in an abusive relationship, who gets hit by their husband 70 times, stay with him? Because those are not the same thing. And that's not to say that what you're going through isn't valid, but it's just to say that the comparisons are really, really insensitive, because that is not what psychologically you were experiencing. Like, maybe on a smaller degree you were fawning, like that's a trauma response. You wanted to, like, placate him by continuing to have a relationship with him. I'm not saying that that is not what happened, but psychologically, when you get into a domestic violent relationship, an intimate partner violence relationship, the way those work is not like the person automatically begins to assault you and cross your boundaries. Like, they charm you, you are love bombed, and then you fall into, like, people aren't just overwhelmingly, it's not like they're just violent from the beginning. You know, you fall in love, they manipulate you, and then they become violent. It's a completely different thing to be groped by a man, and then, because you're a public figure, want to placate him and continue a relationship because you don't want him, like, spinning a narrative about you or whatever. That's a completely different experience. And I just I think it does a disservice to, like, compare the two. And what Michaela went through, like, is still having long-term impacts with her, like, relationship today, in terms of her libido and her sex drive. And that was a huge storyline for her this season, of, like, struggling to be intimate in her relationship because of her past sexual trauma. Like, being abused as a child in general has, like, very severe impacts, because your brain is developing, so you have less defenses than as an adult, right? Like your brain develops around that kind of repeated trauma in a, like, very detrimental way. To compare that to what you went through. I find that to be genuinely like really gross. And I don't know why I'm tearing up, but it's just like, I think that you can talk about your feelings and your experience being valid and like be like, hey, I didn't react the best. I can see now why this looks bad, but I genuinely like didn't want him to like run with a story that wasn't true because I don't want internet backlash. There was a way to like argue her case that didn't bring in other survivors in general, let alone two real women on this cast who have their own experiences they've been open about. Like that was genuinely where Demi like really, really upset me. Like it really angered me. And again, like I've experienced certain things that I'm like, this was a violation. And I would never use somebody else's trauma and be like, well, you've been in a domestic violence relationship, so you of all people should like defend me in this situation or like understand where I'm coming from. Like it was so gross to me. It really was. And I think, again, this is where I feel like I really have a hard time with Demi, because it's like, you could have said, I was deeply uncomfortable, but we're also like public figures, and I knew that he had the power to like spin a story about me online, and I knew that I was already going to get backlash from season 2, and I didn't want to add more to I didn't want to have a pile-on, and I was worried about what he would say because I didn't want this to impact my business and my career, and I wanted to placate him. I wanted to be his friend so he wouldn't tell people something about me that wasn't true. She could have said that without saying, well, people who are abused stay with their husbands. Like, why do people do anything? That was too far. Unnecessary, insensitive, and it just made you look worse. It really did. I'm sorry. That genuinely upset me. Like when she was talking on the phone, getting her glam done, and Macy was right next to her getting her glam done, and she like mentions Macy, and she's like, people who have like Macy and Michaela should have my back. Well, Macy's like literally right there. Genuinely, like I was fuming. It made me so angry. And I just like genuinely, if Demi were to ever listen to this, I'd be like, not that she's going to. Genuinely, again, I'm a flop podcaster just like Jason. But if Demi were to listen to this, my message to her would be, if you want other people to have grace and compassion for you, I think that you should give it to others. And I think that you could use whatever therapy retreat Taylor went to that has allowed her to have like nuance and understanding for people's perspectives in a way that I don't know. I think I really like Taylor's growth this season. And I feel like Demi could use whatever that is. Like there was genuinely no need. There's no need to compare. There's no need to compare. I'm sorry. There's no need to be like, why did I keep talking to the guy who groped me? Well, people who are abused by their husbands stay. Those are apples and oranges. You can talk about your reaction and your feeling and explain your reasoning without invoking that kind of thing. That was completely unnecessary. And it was really, really unnecessary to bring in Michaela and Macy's trauma. And I think genuinely to me, what that indicates for me is like, I genuinely don't feel like Demi has an understanding of how trauma works. Because as somebody who has experienced trauma, I'm very aware of the ways in which there are levels to things. And I would just genuinely never compare, because the way she went about it, I'm like, I genuinely don't feel like you understand what trauma is. Because if you're comparing what you went through to like Michaela being abused by a family member as a child, and Macy being in an intimate relationship with somebody who is abusing her, to compare the two, I genuinely find to be like, I feel like you don't understand levels to things. And it's not to say that what you went through wasn't validly frustrating. It's just to say, I don't know, it genuinely upsets me. And I think it's just like, it would make a world of a difference if Demi said, I understand why from an outside perspective, it looks odd. Like she never says that. She's kind of like, how dare you judge me? How dare you judge me? Instead of accepting the fact that the way you handled things, other people might have their opinions about it. What you have to, in my opinion, the healthy approach is saying, you don't have to understand my reasoning and you can judge the way that I reacted to it. I know that I did the best with what I could, and my thought process maybe doesn't make a ton of sense. This is what made sense to me in the moment, and I can see from an outside perspective why it maybe wasn't. She doesn't say that. Even with the shoving thing, she's like, well, he touched me and it was wrong, instead of trying to be like, Miranda, I see what you mean about like she doesn't see the other person's perspective. She's not like, Miranda, you're right that like maybe the words I use matter. She's just like, well, why should the words I use matter? He touched me, that was wrong, end of story. You know what I mean? And I think also where I find to me to be very frustrating is that it feels like a lot of the issues she has with the other women is like based off of her moral compass, where it's like, what did Jen do to you personally? What does Jesse, if Jesse was having an affair, like they're not wronging you personally. You just like have this weird moral compass where you're like, I don't know. I'm not making any sense because I genuinely got very upset about the whole Demi Marciano situation. And that was like the tail end of the season. But yeah, that's like what I wanted to say about the Demi Marciano stuff, because it's like the way she handled it is like really frustrating to me. And then like at the end of the season, they have like a moment where everybody says their piece, and she like still takes issue with the fact that she doesn't feel like Jen gave her a proper apology. And it's like, what does Jen owe you an apology for? Lying to you, maybe? Like, there's no grace. Like, you want people to not judge the way you handled the stuff with Marciano, because sometimes people act illogically when they're in situations like this. Couldn't you say the same about Jen? Couldn't you say that somebody being pregnant, going through a relationship struggle, that was like a very tense situation. Her marriage was like tense, and then she got pregnant, and then she started struggling with her mental health, and you called it performative. You had many opportunities, Demi did, to apologize for that and say, if she's struggling, then I'm sorry, or like, I wish her the best. Like, there was no compassion or grace or empathy for Jen, to the point where you still feel like she owes you an apology a year later, instead of being like, maybe Jen didn't handle things the best because she was struggling mentally. Like, I'm sorry, for me, genuinely, if I was Jen, I don't think I could look past somebody who said that I was being performative when I opened up about the fact that I was struggling with suicidal ideation. Like, I could not look past that. And maybe this is just a sore spot for me, because that is something that I've struggled with and also feel a lot of like shame about, where I feel like if I opened up to somebody and they were like, well, I don't know, I feel like they're using that as an excuse. And then multiple people were like, do you feel differently about this now? And like, you just doubled down. Like, genuinely, I would never forgive you. I would never forgive you. I mean, maybe I would forgive you, but I don't think I could be your friend again or like have you in my life in a meaningful way, because then it's like, you genuinely don't have compassion for me. That is something that I will genuinely always err on the side of caution. It's like the worst case scenario, if you don't believe somebody in that situation, is that they are no longer with us. If they're lying, all you lost was like, and I said this, I had a similar sentiment when I was talking about Selling Sunset, of like Mary being so offended by Chelsea sending her flowers, where it's like, if the flowers were fake on her end, then like that says more about her than it does you. Like, just accept the kind gesture. If somebody's doing a kind gesture to be fake or shady, then like that's on them, that's not on you. I feel a similar way to like, if somebody's lying about their mental health, that's on them. That's not on you. Not giving them the grace and being like, and taking that at face value and trying to like discredit that and like not having grace for that. And like, I don't know. Demi, I find to be very frustrating. I also do not like the way that her husband handled things. Like, she called him after the situation with Miranda, where Miranda was defending Chase by being like, he didn't shove you. And Demi's like, a shove can be this, and then a shove could be this, and she like does different degrees, and she's kind of like, he touched me, that was wrong, like who cares? And Miranda's like, but it does matter, like the word you use. And she calls her husband after Brett, and she's like crying, and she's like, why are we still, I mentioned this earlier, like why are we still judging women for how they react to men being douchebags? And her husband is like, these women suck, called Miranda white trash. Like, I just don't like the way, I don't think he helps her, because if I was in that situation and Demi called me and she was crying, I'd be like, I understand, and that's frustrating to like not feel believed and feel like somebody's not on your side, but like maybe Miranda has a point. Maybe you should be careful with the words you use. But I don't think she views it that way, because she's still a year later can't be like I can have grace and compassion for the fact that people in the moment react weirdly. The part that I'm really not getting past with Demi is that there's distance and she continues to like not try to see why other people are taking issue with the way she handles things. Like, let's say in that moment you feel like he touches you and you like go into fight or flight and you get upset and you're like, I want my husband to defend me. I cannot, that's okay. I still don't think you handled it well. And I think you need to learn to regulate your emotions so you don't escalate to like more threats. That's not making the situation better. But I feel like she genuinely wanted her husband to defend her honor. And that's, in my opinion, a toxic approach to things, okay? More violence isn't making the situation any better. More threats, more intimidation, escalating the temperature in the room, that's not making things any better. But like, let's say, like, I can have grace for that. I don't understand why a year later, Miranda, Chase's ex, is the mother of his children, is being like, the words you use matter. And like, I will defend the father of my children in this instance. He didn't shove you. He shouldn't have touched you, but like, words matter. Like, and Demi can't have like the distance and the perspective to be like, I see where you're coming from. Even if she said, I see where you're coming from, I completely disagree. He touched me, end of story. She doesn't say that. Like, there's no trying to understand somebody else's perspective. The way Demi communicates really upsets me. Even, again, the hair thing, it's still like, well, it's like deflection. There's no accountability with Demi. I know everybody loves the word accountability, but anyways, let's move on to happier topics. Or not happier topics, but I want to talk about other people now. I'm tired of talking about the Demi, Marciano, Jesse saga. I touched on Layla's storyline a little bit, and I really enjoyed Layla's storyline this season and like embracing her Black side, because basically her dad is Black, but she like grew up primarily like with her mom's side of the family. I don't remember, but I think her dad's side is not really involved in her life, so she like was always called whitewashed. And like, I liked her coming into her own and like getting her hair done at somebody who knew how to do her hair. And like, I really enjoyed that arc for Layla. I genuinely did. Even the way she handled situations with the other women, like being like, no, this is how I feel, and standing firm. I really liked the way Layla handled herself this season. I mean, I've always been a fan of Layla, but like, I really loved Layla this season. I want to talk about the Whitney coming back to be on Dancing with the Stars. In episode 4, I believe, Whitney comes back because they are auditioning to be on Dancing with the Stars. And Whitney's like, I need to be on the show to audition to be on Dancing with the Stars. And I will say, I loved Whitney's approach this season because she's very much like, Mom talks a business, we're coworkers. Yeah, I'm coming back to the show to get this opportunity. Like, why are we acting like Mom Talk isn't a business? I was eating it up. I was eating it up because that's so true. That's so true. Mom Talk is a business. You guys are influencers. You are coworkers. You're on the show. Like, I cannot hate Whitney for that. I like that. And I also like the fact that towards the end of the season, Whitney kind of gets to a point where she's like, it is a business, and I did want to treat it as just business, but I do genuinely care about these women and I do want to be friends with them. And so she like does want to be in their life. I think where Whitney really, the one thing I really didn't like about Whitney this season was her defense of Demi. Like, she was so on Demi's side, and I understand, but I also, like, there was a moment, and I don't remember what episode it is, but Whitney, when talking about the Demi situation and the way that the other women like didn't believe Demi or doubted Demi in regards to the Marciano thing, she said something about how friends should be the ones to give you the most grace. And I agree with that. The reason most people have such a hard time with Demi is because she doesn't give the other people grace in the situation. She doesn't give Taylor grace. Like, she still judges Taylor's character. She judges Jesse. She judges Jen for being a liar. Like, Demi doesn't approach the other women with, like, grace and compassion and trying to understand where they're coming from when they do things that she doesn't agree with. If it's just she thinks it's wrong, then they're wrong for doing it. There's no grace in trying to see the best in the other women. So I just, that's where I'm like, yes, I agree with you, Whitney. Why doesn't Demi do that with the other women? I understand where she was coming from, and I did like the fact that it was kind of her, like, she was trying to bring them all together. I will also say, I love Whitney's husband, Connor, and I loved the scene where Whitney is talking to him about the Demi situation, and he's trying, like, he talks about it with such nuance and such compassion. that I really appreciated, because he's like, I obviously like never want to like not believe somebody when they're saying this happened. There are just inconsistencies and it is confusing. Like specifically, Connor took a lot of issue with the fact that Demi was still sending Demi sent Marciano a video of her daughter praying, because Connor's like, if somebody had made me uncomfortable in that way, the last thing I would do is have my child anywhere near them. And Connor opened up in the season 2 reunion that he was abused as a child. So like obviously like he has a sensitivity to it that I really appreciated, because I agree with him. Like I think, and again, I do think that there is nuance, and I do think that like there isn't a perfect, like people aren't perfect victims, and I don't think Demi continuing to talk to him means she wasn't groped by him, or like harassed or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that literally at all. For me, the issue I took with Demi is the way that she talked about that and compared it to other. I've already talked about this ad nauseum, but I really love Connor. I really like Connor. I really like Whitney this season and the way she kind of brought things together. I love the fact that she came back and she's like, Mom talks a business. That was so fun to me. Genuinely, I loved that. The one issue I took was I'm like, why is she friends with Demi? But you know what? Somebody's got to be on Demi's side. Okay, I want to talk about the Taylor-Dakota storyline this season. So basically, actually, before I get to that, I want to talk about Michaela really briefly, because Michaela's storyline this season is that she's struggling with intimacy with her husband. I appreciated the storyline. I have so much compassion for Michaela. I just feel really sad for her, and not in a like I pity her. I just have a lot of like compassion for her, and I think it's why like seeing Michaela's trauma surface and like impact her life today in all the ways that we've seen it impact her, from like her chronic health issues to marriage issues. Like to me, even hearing like everything Macy's been through, it's like it's why the Demi stuff really, really irritated me, because I'm like, Michaela is still dealing with the impacts of being abused as a child by a family member to this day. I really think it's insensitive to compare what you experience to that. I do. And again, what you experience is valid. And it's also, you need to read the room and like have compassion. And like, while there are like experiences that I went through and traumas that I've been through, I would still like not compare that to what other people have been through, because it's insensitive. It's insensitive and it's unkind. It's unkind. Anyways, I'm wishing Michaela the best. I love her and Macy as a duo. Really enjoyed them working together to get to the bottom of the Marciano stuff. So moving on to the Taylor-Dakota storyline. So basically the season opens, Taylor and Dakota are just co-parenting. She comes back from her retreat. They're like working out, co-parenting stuff. They're kind of like, you know, not really a thing. And then Stagecoach happens and they hook up. And after Stagecoach happens and they hook up, they're kind of like, it's like maybe they can be a thing again, right? She opens up the door to that being a possibility. Jordan, meanwhile, has information from Dakota about the fact that Dakota they didn't actually hook up, but he had like a flirtation with somebody who Taylor considered like a family member. I believe it was one of her mom's friends. Jesse did know this for a little bit longer and was like trying to figure out when to tell Taylor, and eventually I believe Dakota tells Taylor. He doesn't give her like the full truth, but like at this point, you know it's bad, because every person in Taylor Frankie Paul's family was like, you cannot go back to Dakota. Last season, they were like, who cares that you were toxic together, that like you literally, like who cares about all of this stuff that he's done? You should work on it. Like they were pushing for her to work on her relationship with Dakota and be with Dakota for the sake of her child, and like, which I thought was wild, because I'm like, why would you see her in this tumultuous relationship and be like, you need to work on it? But they were very much pushing for her to give Dakota another chance. When her dad is like, Dakota, you cannot go back to him, it's like genuinely, I don't know. And it is wild. And it did make me really sad for Taylor when she was like in a confessional being like, this is like my family, like the last place that I should feel insecure about girls is in my own home. And like that is genuinely really sad. And Dakota genuinely has issues that he needs to work on. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, because I think Taylor had things to work on. And I think the way that she was a lot more regulated and like logical and compassionate and like forgiving this season is proof that like working on yourself helps. But it genuinely made me really sad for Taylor. Like, you know, it's bad when her dad or stepdad is like, you cannot be with this man. She talks about how like there's a photo of her when she's pregnant and Dakota's like holding her belly, and then this woman like next to her. Like, that genuinely broke my heart. It broke my heart. And I was excited for Taylor to be the Bachelorette before. I'm even more excited after this season. I think she's a good version of herself going into the season. I think she'll be great TV. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And I don't really like believe that The Bachelor can produce a long-lasting relationship. I think it's unlikely, but maybe it'll work out for Taylor, and I wish her the best in whatever path her journey takes. But that was genuinely, and she talked about it in her Call Her Daddy interview when it was announced that she was gonna be the Bachelorette, that like she and Dakota 100% like it's done. And seeing like why it makes a lot of sense, because like crossing the boundary of like, not only was he dishonest about like another woman that he was talking to, like dishonest again, which like, but the fact that it was somebody who was friends with Taylor's mom, who he met at like her family events, I understand why that's like a step too far. But what else did I want to talk about during the season? Okay, I'm a fan of Jen, and I was actually so happy that she kind of got like a bit of a redemption this season, where like a lot of the women were on her side again, and like she was like, Demi kind of turned on me. I did appreciate the fact that she was kind of like, why was Jessie being so hard on me when she was like going through stuff in her marriage, and Jessie did apologize, and like they seem okay. Like, I think they're on good terms now. And she did acknowledge that maybe she was projecting a little bit because she was going through her own relationship struggles. So like I did appreciate that. Again, like there is one of the biggest, I feel like, issues with Demi is that she's not able to be like, I understand where you're coming from, or like, I see your perspective. It's very much like her perspective, her view on things is right. And if you disagree, then like, you're wrong. Anyways, I'm really not trying to like shit on Demi this entire podcast, but like, I genuinely took a lot of issue with the way she handled things. But I like the fact that Jen kind of got a bit of redemption. She and Zach seemed to be okay. Like, the thing is, was I cheering for her to dump him? Yes, I was. However, people's relationships are none of my business. And if they've worked through, I also think like they're very young. They're very young and they have children together. Like, she's literally my age. So like I'm young, so no, I'm kidding. But like, I genuinely wish people the best, and I if they've worked on it and he's a good partner to her, and like I want what's best for her. So if that relationship is working out. Also, oh my god, this is so random, but at some point when they're talking about Vanderpump Villa, he refers to Marciano as the chubby Italian guy. Like, he's good on TV. Most of the time he's good on TV because I'm booing him, but he's not wrong that mom talk can sometimes be like they're like, it's about women empowering women, but a lot of the times it's not. It's very critical. I do think this season felt like it was a lot more like women empowering women and less like they were attacking each other. And I liked that. I appreciated that. And I feel like, and I don't think everything's on one person, so I'm not trying to blame her, but I do feel like a lot of that trying to attack people and judging people, a lot of it was coming from Demi. Like, she literally at the end of season 2 was like, Taylor's disgusting. She's not a good person. I don't know why you want to be friends with her. You know what I mean? Like, there was a level of like, I will say something really funny, not funny, but something that I personally, at the beginning of the season, they're talking about like who's in mom talk, who's out of mom talk. If you're in mom talk, you're in. If you're out, you're out. Like, if you take a break for your mental health, that's valid. But if you leave, then you leave. And I said this to my sister, but I was like, you can really tell that like they're in a cult with the whole way that they approach mom talk of like, if you leave mom talk, you're not welcome back in. I'm like, okay. excommunicating people. Like, we get it, you're Mormons. I'm sorry. Like, that was so, I'm like, it's not that deep. You're in mom talk, you're out of mom talk. It's like, doesn't need to be that serious. They're like, if you decide that you want to step away from mom talk, then you're done forever. It's like, okay, doesn't need to be that serious. I don't even know. But that kind of like falls to the wayside when Whitney comes back to mom talk, because they're kind of like, well, if you're out of mom talk, you're out of mom talk. And she's like, well, I'm going to try. I'm just going to make my own mom talk. Like, I'll make mom talk whatever I want it to be. And this is when she kind of has her approach of like, it's a business. Like, I'm on the show. We're coworkers. We don't need to be friends. It doesn't need to be the sisterhood. We're coworkers. Taylor does kind of apologize to her and is like, I don't want you to feel like everybody's ganging up on you. And then Whitney very much tries to like mend defenses, and they kind of end the season back on coworker status. We'll see in the reunion how things go. You can really, like the way they're talking about mom talk, it's like, okay, we get it. This is a cult. Miranda's still like TBD for so long. I'm like, why do you care? What has Miranda done to not be in mom talk? Like, welcome Miranda in. Miranda, I do think, is officially in mom talk. I love Miranda. Her and Layla are my two favorites. I love her. I love them. I also really like Jen. I also really like Whitney as a TV character. Obviously, I like Taylor, Frankie, Paul. I like Macy. I like McKay. I honestly like most of them. But I do have a personal allegiance to Layla and Miranda because they are the two liberals on the cast. So, anyways, I'm excited about the reunion. I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. I think I got most of it, but maybe next week I can do another debrief. When the reunion happens, I'll talk about any stuff that I forgot to talk about during this episode. Right now, I'm like, I don't know if I got everything because I didn't take notes. So I'm like, maybe I didn't get everything I wanted to get. But the good news is that it doesn't matter. When I cover the reunion, if there's anything that I forgot to mention, I'll just talk about it then. So, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives Season 3, not yet over. When it comes to the reunion, I'll debrief about any stuff that I missed and forgot to talk about and any new revelations at the reunion. I Love LA coverage will continue. And then next week, to fill the space, I'll probably talk about something else. I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about the reunion in December when that comes out. Hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Season 3. Apologies if it was kind of all over the place. I really like the show. I think overarching takeaways, I really enjoyed like the behind the scenes of Mom Talk, and specifically with the season 2 airing and us seeing the press and then them talking after the press. I thought that was so interesting. I really liked that. I liked all the times they went to LA. I was eating that up. That was so fun for me. I live here. Like, even they go to Stagecoach and they meet Lana Del Rey, because Lana Del Rey is like DMs Michaela and is like, I want to meet you guys. And like they meet, like, and it was super cool. And she like asked them if it was like real in the drama. And they're like, just wait until season 2. And like all of these things. It was so interesting. It was so interesting. Like the behind the scenes of Mom Talk. I really like Jen coming back into the group and like seeming to be in better spirits and like more welcome in the group. I really appreciated it. I thought it was such a great season. I loved the way that Taylor was able to, like, I genuinely felt her growth and change, and like I really liked that. Macy and Michaela, I appreciate their vulnerability and their humor. Like they're such a great duo and they bring so much to the show. I enjoyed the season. I thought it was really great. I love the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I'm a big fan. And I want to go to Utah one day and try swig, and then also go to the High School Musical school because that's in Salt Lake. Road trip to Salt Lake City. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say. I think this was my favorite season by far. I felt more like I felt a lot more emotionally invested in the women. Not that I didn't before, but I'm genuinely now like parasocially attached and like invested in these women. And I'm really excited for Beyond. I'm excited to see the behind the scenes of Dancing with the Stars. Like, I'm really excited for just like where the show will go from here. I think it's such a great show, and it's so fascinating seeing influencers. Like, reality TV is such a, like, people go on to be influencers, so it's so fascinating to see people, like, influencers then being on reality TV, if that makes sense. I'm not making any sense. Anyways, sorry for being so annoying, but I hope you enjoyed the episode. Don't know what I'll talk about next week. after the I Love LA section, but I'll find something. There's always shows that I'm watching. So I Love LA episode 4, that'll be out next week, with the other half hour of the episode spent talking about whatever else I'm watching that week. If you enjoyed the episode, please feel free to follow me wherever you listen to podcasts so you can get notified when I upload a new episode. Like and subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube. Share with a friend. All those good things. Thank you so much. It means a lot. Hope you have a great week. You'll hear from me next week. Bye.